Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Undisputed Heavyweight Champion of the World show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is Football and Nonsense. It is Thursday. There is Thursday Night Football happening right now. Probably one of the better matchups of the season for Thursday Night Football, now that they planned it that way. No. We wouldn't know a matchup like this unless we looked ahead to the future. The Carolina Panthers are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles in a battle of 4-1. That's right. Whoever wins tonight will be solely atop their respective division, as the Eagles are coming off of a 3-game win streak. And then the Carolina Panthers coming off 2 big wins, or I guess one of their biggest wins over the New England Patriots in New England. So clearly a battle of 2 teams struggling to be one of the best in the NFC, because there are no longer any winless teams in the NFC. However, teams with only 1 loss would be the likes of the Packers, the Eagles, the Panthers. So 2 of those are playing tonight. Now then, as far as the rest of the NFL is concerned, we do have a few headlines today. And once again, this episode is brought to you by the good folks at mybookie.ag. That's right, go and visit mybookie.ag today. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making some money. MyBookie is the industry leader as far as website goes for your online betting and gambling action. They are going to hook you up for all of your betting needs. Now, with their great odds, fast payouts, and their decades of experience, you can bet with confidence, and why wouldn't you? It's your money, so you might as well make sure that it's worth the gamble, pun intended. And so if you visit mybookie.ag today, they will match your initial deposit up to 100% when you use promo code TheFanShow. So why not? I trust them. You should trust them too. That's why we're proud partners here. They're a proud sponsor of The Fan Show, and this episode is brought to you by them. MyBookie.ag. Go and check them out. Place a bet. And don't forget, if your team sucks, you can bet on them. That way, if they lose, you win, and if you lose, they win. I mean, it's kind of a weird win-win situation when you think about it. MyBookie.ag. And today's headlines, Ezekiel Elliott. And I don't understand what this whole thing is that's going on. Apparently, today it was announced that his suspension will be upheld, or it's reinstated after a court ruling. And it's just, at a certain point, if you're a player, do you not just say, I'll just do it? Because in all honesty, like, he was projected to be done with his suspension next week, after the bye week. Now it looks like they're going to lose him possibly at the worst time that they could. So he's gone from possibly coming back next week after missing the start of the season, and granted those wins that they have, which there's not a lot of them, they are a few games behind in the NFC East race, hence why it's so important for the Eagles to continue to win tonight. But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. And, it is what it is. Ezekiel Elliott can either feel remorse or he won't, and he can either feel bad for it. You have to want to like someone in order to stand in their corner, and that's not really the case with Ezekiel Elliott unless you're a fantasy football owner of his. So I know there's a lot of you out there. People were racing to the waiver wires to see if they could grab Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden. But I guess the timing, of course, with things like this with the Cowboys is always perfect, because they have a bye week, so they have over a week to get this whole thing sorted out. What there is to sort out, I don't know. Like, I'm looking into it, and even the pages that you would go to, like NFL.com and the Cowboys website, there's like not a whole lot that you can pull from what it is that's going on with Ezekiel Elliott. So, yeah, the last thing that Schefter tweeted was that a 6-game suspension for Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott now looms. As a practical matter, Ezekiel Elliott's suspension goes back into effect, but his lawyers can still refile in Dallas or fight it in New York City. It's just, man, at a certain point, take the L and just whatever. Now, of course, Tom Brady fought his whole ordeal tooth and nail to the bitter end, and he still ended up serving a 4-game suspension. They came back and they won the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's how this is going to go if Zeke just bites the bullet and does the 6-game suspension, but I mean, come on. At a certain point, you have to stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about your team. And maybe I'm reading that reverse. Maybe this whole thing being dragged out is him thinking about his team. But he doesn't strike me as the type to put his team before himself. He just doesn't. He wants the ball and feeds Zeke, and he's Ezekiel Elliott. He's untouchable because he was a rookie phenom last year, and we have a problem disciplining those that benefit us in the world of gambling and fantasy football, which is essentially gambling. So that's pretty much the headline for today. Now, of course, I did mention to you guys that I was going to try and do a little bit of hockey talk going on, and I forget what the schedule is as far as if they have played since then, but my St. Louis Blues playing right now. They're off to a great start. And then the Vegas Golden Knights, man, oh man, wouldn't you believe it? They are the first expansion team in NHL history to go 3-0. That, to me, is crazy. Right now, my Blues are losing 3-1. Oh, that hurts. That hurts a little bit. But let's see here. So the Jersey Devils, they're 3-0. Pittsburgh Penguins, man, 2-1. They had a brutal opening. Toronto is 3-1. Tampa Bay 2-1. Detroit 2-1. Washington 2-1. And let's see, Columbus 2-1. Ottawa 1-0. And 2 ties. And let's see here. Where is... Oh, this is what I'm trying to navigate the NHL website. I'm silly. Okay. Oh, Vegas. Where are you, Vegas? Vegas Golden Knights. There they are. Yeah, it's 3-0. So the Vegas Golden Knights, they are the first expansion team to start out 3-0, and good on them. This is something that, it's like I said with Houston for the NFL before the season started, that this was a team that was going to play for a city. This team is going to play for this city. I think that if you guys aren't watching Vegas hockey, that you're doing yourself a great disservice, because they're coming out with the first responders from the shooting and everything like that. There's no sponsors on the boards that go around the ice rink there. It just says Vegas Strong. So they are a team that feel they represent the heart of a city, and they're going to play that way. So they're off to 3-0. So hopefully my St. Louis Blues can pull this out. It's 5 minutes left in the second period. They trail by 2. Pittsburgh currently in the second against Tampa Bay. They trail by 2 as well. 4-2 in that game. Scoreless in Chicago as the Minnesota Wild are there. It's coming down to the end of the first period. Dallas and Nashville. Dallas leads 1-0. Just the start of the second. And that will do it for tonight's games. And then we've got another slew of matchups later on and tomorrow. It's going to take me a while to step into this whole hockey thing, but I feel confident about it. I do. We had James Coe from NFL Fantasy Live on yesterday. We talked for a half hour. It was a great conversation. If you missed that episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. He is one of my favorite first-time guests, so we're definitely going to have him on again. But we talked about how he was a color commentator. He started out in basketball, and then how his life, the course of everything, took him down all these different roads. He used to be such a big fan of WWE and liked good old JR and Chris Berman, and that's why he got into commentary. Now he talks fantasy football. We talked about my idea as far as being able to substitute players in game, and he thinks that could be accomplished if you did scoring by half. So you score the first half, everything unlocks, and then it unlocks for the second half. And of course, that would have to be per game because every game runs on a different clock. But still, it's something because, you have these players that get injured in game, right? And you were hoping for at least 10 points out of somebody, and now your game is lost because you can't substitute, even though they get to substitute in the actual game of football. Somebody told me that the concept of fantasy football is nothing like the concept of fantasy, except for it is, because your goal is to still outscore your opponent, and you get a lot of your points when somebody scores a touchdown, and you get other points when a kicker makes a field goal. So other than the individual scoring, obviously, if you get, let's say, 12 points, 6 and 6, if you have a quarterback and a wide receiver, that quarterback throws the touchdown to that wide receiver. Obviously, that doesn't happen in football. You just get the 6 points for that one touchdown. But, details, they're still very similar. That's why it works the way that it does. It's called fantasy football, though, because you're drafting your own team of players that you would want to have if you ran your own team, i.e. franchise. So that's what we discussed yesterday. Marc Sessler is on tonight making his debut. We recorded that interview yesterday as well. Very excited for you all to hear that. And we do a round of F.A.N. versus F.A.N. show pick'em, and that should be good. I'm 1-4 in that. Ugh. Of course, it had to come down to that last game between me and Shane. Blah. Don't like it. We gave out a Butt Fumble Award for Week 5. Congratulations, Nick Folk. That was yesterday's episode, as well as we added the 5th item to the list of F.A.N. show.
You just made the list!
Yep, it's fun every week here on The F.A.N. Show, so don't forget, check out that episode. Visit the website, thefanshow.com. That is your home base for all things football and nonsense. Got several articles up yesterday and today, including a new opinion piece by Omar Cook. He is our opinion specialist. This can be found in the Nonsense tab, because if it's not football, it's nonsense. And it is the recent writings of his feelings regarding Jameel Hill. Of course, I gave my whole spiel at the top of last night's episode. Again, another reason to go back and listen to that in case you missed it. But him and I do feel differently. But I'm not although I am a registered small business, a licensed small business, I don't have company policies for my writers. I told them when I went out and said, if you would like to write for me this season, submit a sample of your work and then we'll talk. And then from there, I chose the best, 7, 8 guys or girls that I could find and said, here's how this is going to work. I said, I'm not going to give you assignments each week unless, of course, you're out of ideas and you need a suggestion. I want you to write what you're passionate about. Write what you know, because then I know I'm going to get the best quality writing out of you. And Omar has really, he's a Raiders fan. He's done some great write-ups on the Raiders as well as the AFC West. In fact, one of his articles posted today was, are the Kansas City Chiefs the best in the NFL? That can be found under the football tab. Go and give that one a read for you Chiefs Kingdom folk and Chiefs fans. But then these pieces that he's done for Jameel Hill, when Marshawn Lynch sat during the national anthem during preseason, and then this most recent piece today, man, he does quality work. So I encourage you all to go and check it out. The links are up on Facebook as well as Twitter, and you can find them. And then, of course, visit thefanshow.com, and it should be either football, nonsense, or fantasy. And this one is under the nonsense. Connor Ferguson had another great article recapping the Vikings' most recent win over the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football with backup quarterback Case Keenum, who came in and saved the day, but it was really the Jerick McKinnon show, so that's good. The Adrian Peterson trade to Arizona, of course, we'll see how that goes. James and I talked a little bit briefly about that at the end of last night's episode. He is all in on AP the Cardinal, so that will conclude our opening segment as far as headlines and what we need to catch up on. So I'm going to do my best to do some hockey talk. I got to find some hockey guests, obviously. Darren Pfeiffer, he's my go-to. He's also a Bills fan. It'll be fun to talk to him because the Bills don't suck right now. So, hey, maybe he'll be in a good mood about that. But next week, because it is the week leading up to the big showdown, one of the greatest rivalries in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. Marc Istook will join me again. We'll do that. We'll probably do a round of fan versus fan show for him to be on. We did it last year. But yeah, got a lot of great stuff planned for the fan show. So my interview with Marc Sessler coming up next. So don't go anywhere. We've got more of the fan show coming up after this.
This is The Sheet.
Gets me all revved up. My face is now red. My ears are just freaking boiling.
He's so raw. He's so raw that Sky hates him.
Yeah, he had 51 touchdowns, 4,900 total yards.
I know y'all like that, but I got to run. And only in Alabama that could happen, I have to say.
They're so good, man. They would win the Big Ten if they were in the Big Ten. You could be doing something vision-based in front of you and reach down and grab a handful of insane goodness.
Give it to him. Kudos. I'm clapping like a golfer. Very good, Johnny. I'm proud of you.
Wow. You guys agree on something again? I'm very impressed. You ever had a bad week? You know, just you walk outside, step in a puddle, like right when you walk outside. I mean, how's there a puddle right outside your house? Or you stand on the curb and somebody drives by and splashes water up on you? Or it's just raining on you, not anyone else?
I will tell you, before you go any further, I cannot hear Chad when he speaks. Good.
Here, listen to the sheet, man. I don't really know what we're doing.
Every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on WBLZ Sports.
Whether it be your industrial, commercial, or residential needs, Gen Service is the electrical contractor for you. The Gen Service team has the expertise, commitment, and educational years to help you solve all your electrical concerns. They have you in their best interest with helpful suggestions to accommodate your every want. Give them a call, no matter the size of the job, at 740-438-7173. Mention WBLZ Sports, and you'll get a discount. That's Gen Service, 740-438-7173.
This is Nick Ciccarelli, the mad scientist of sports. Join me and Dr. D, Derek Jones, live every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, for the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. The big intellect, the experiments on the chalkboard, and the guest subjects will be rolling in. Mad Scientist Sports Lab, only on WBLZ Sports, where we got balls.
Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. He has over 30 years of painting experience. He's interior, exterior, commercial, or residential. Doug Peffer covers it all. Is your house looking ugh? We'll call on Doug. Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. 404-966-3361. Mention WBLZ Sports and get a special We've Got Balls discount. That's Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. 404-966-3361.
Check out Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL legends live on. We bring you 5 NFL legends every week, sharing their stories and insights, plus our spotlight on the positive. Hear which players are doing great things in their communities. Now on WBLZ Sports Talk Radio and WBLZSports.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, people of Fan Nation, first timer for this Thursday is one of your favorites from the NFL Network, Marc Sessler. Welcome, Marc. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. One thing that I do like to start off every person's first time on the show with is getting their official title, so I know if I should call them Sir Hot Takes, Their Majesty, whatever it may be. What's your official title, Mr. Sessler?
I don't know if I have an official title. I'm essentially, a podcaster and basically a writer for NFL.com and NFL Media and NFL Network. So it's kind of like a variety of roles, and they've not found a way to, put that into one title, which I get.
They haven't figured out a way to properly embody you into just one word.
That's correct.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show. Happy to have you, and I'm excited to talk some football. Now, of course, we're going into Week 6, and the first 4 to 5 weeks can be kind of a placebo, a mirage. We've got the Chiefs at 5-0, and then, of course, the Giants are 0-5. Your opinion, what's been the biggest surprise that 2017 has brought us so far?
I would say the absolute non-emergence of anything resembling a truly dominant team. I really like what the Chiefs have done, and a lot of respect for how they've grown that offense and how Alex Smith is fitting so well into what's more aggressive attack in general. But I think the Chiefs can be beaten. I look at the NFC, I look at the AFC, I look at New England, teams like Atlanta, Carolina, a lot of quality teams, but I don't see a dominant club. And really, that's unusual because there's at least usually one team you can point to by now and say they are rounding into shape. Now, that may still come. It's just that I think that almost no result on a weekly basis surprises me at this point. It's as unpredictable a league as it's ever been.
Is there any team that you're not entirely sold on even at this point in the season, whether record good or bad, but just your jury is still out on them?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. A team coming into the year that I think everyone sort of stamped to go right on into the playoffs, no questions asked, that is really struggling. It's Oakland. For me, it's the Raiders. It's beyond Derek Carr's injury. It sounds like he'll be back. It's really just the fact that you look at Amari Cooper's issues. Marshawn Lynch was brought on to hopefully be the Marshawn Lynch of old. I think he's running well, but the whole ground game, the offensive line that last year was so dominant has not been as dominant this year, and the defense is suspect. So I really think that the Raiders are a team that I need to see more from, and they've got a brutal schedule and a really tough division.
Yeah, it certainly always seems like it's a case of really bad timing with the Raiders. Derek Carr's injury last year and then his injury right now. Now, of course, he will be back, but we'll see how much damage has been done. They're in the AFC West. They have the Broncos who are playing well, and then, of course, the Chiefs. You know, it's hard to play catch-up with the team that hasn't lost yet. So it's an uphill battle for them. But speaking of, running backs bursting onto the scene in a completely new environment, yesterday it was announced, breaking news, the trade of Adrian Peterson and the Arizona Cardinals. They are going to be one this season. Immediate impact, any impact at all? Like, is this the last that we'll see of AP?
I think it might be. I mean, you can judge it on what he did in New Orleans, and if that's the case, it's more of a name. We all understand that he's a big name and he's a star and he's a Hall of Famer in waiting, but it just hasn't been there on tape this year. And I think that the situation with the Saints made it especially tough, really for him and Mark Ingram. I think Adrian Peterson's a guy that you can't insert into the lineup late second quarter, early third quarter, and expect to kind of get the AP of old where he gets into a flow. Maybe it's the 8th, 9th run where he just blasts through a defense and goes 60 yards to the end zone. We're not seeing that this season, and I think it's the way he was used. I like the idea of him going to Arizona and being the unquestioned lead back. That's a good opportunity, but that offensive line has been an absolute disaster. I don't know how long Carson Palmer lasts behind that line, and it really just feels like an aging team. It's a sort of a last-ditch Hail Mary effort, and it feels a little desperate. Not to say that Peterson can't kind of turn the script on what his early season was. It's possible, but I don't see that based on what we've seen. He's not the same back of old at this point. That can change. I think the offensive line situation and the overall offense in Arizona maybe a really defunct scenario and a tough place to come in and thrive in his situation.
Yeah, and of course, Arizona, they also have an uphill battle for the rest of the season because they're in a division with the Seahawks and the Rams, who just faced off this last weekend, and it looks like this is going to be the matchup that we see as far as determining who will come out on top in that division. Right now, it's the Seahawks who they only hold the tiebreaker, but with so many turnovers, and the Rams who were a tipped ball away from winning that game. Is Sean McVay really that good of a fit for them, or was this a team on the verge already and it just needed to have some kind of consistency at head coach?
Well, I think in the previous regime with Jeff Fisher, and I know he's an easy target at this point, they really failed to develop offensive talent. They did some good things they drafted well on defense, and they had their moments, and they often knocked off the Seahawks in a weird way year after year under Jeff Fisher. But what I see now in Sean McVay is that he's bringing the elements and the explosiveness and the development of offensive players. That the same thing that happened in Washington. He maximized that attack with the Redskins, and I think we're seeing the same with the Rams. I have to give him the benefit of the doubt and view him as a Coach of the Year candidate, because when you can take a franchise quarterback like Jared Goff and change from what we were seeing last year, which was really concerning. And that can sink an entire franchise and cost people's jobs when a quarterback just does not develop. And so he's flipped the switch on Goff. And I think by bringing in weapons, the front office has done a good job when you add Kupp and when you bring in Sammy Watkins, and suddenly opens things up for Todd Gurley when you can pass the ball. So the whole thing is kind of working well. I think Wade Phillips is the perfect kind of yin and yang match to Sean McVay on defense, and he's sort of letting them. I think the defense is slowly coming into shape, and so I don't think it's a mirage. I think it's just that it's a good coaching staff that's showing ability to develop young players. You see the same thing in Atlanta with their defense too. When you can draft well and develop, you will quickly become a playoff team.
Yeah, it is nice to see Gurley back to what I guess people would call his old self. He's running the way he did as a rookie. But who's your front runner for MVP at this point currently?
Well, that's really tough. I mean, I know this is a boring answer, but I look at Tom Brady, because if you take away, he's had to do more this season than any other year. And I think the team has issues around him. The defense, that stuff's well known. I think the defense is going to improve. But I think Brady's up there. I guess a guy like Kareem Hunt, because of what he's done. But there's so many parts in Kansas City that I think he's more of he's a rookie of the year type option.
Yeah.
I think at this point you have to look also. It's my one thing with these awards is that they're always narrative driven, and they tilt heavily towards the quarterback, as we know. And so Aaron Rodgers is in play for that. You have to just see sort of what kind of quarterback emerges. That's typically my pick. It's unusual if it's someone else.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. It always seems very much that it's kind of leaning towards one particular, position on the football field rather than a collective, which I always thought was kind of unfair. There's 11 guys working in unison to make this all happen on either side, but we pick out one.
I agree with you.
The same guy for specific awards. But, that's the nature of the business. Part of the business, of course, is our bold predictions and hot takes. Is there either one that you have yet to let go of for 2017?
Well, there's one that I brought up on our podcast, the Around the NFL podcast, way back when, that I'm starting to, I think at the time was just sort of a shot in the dark, but I'm starting to buy into it. And it was that this would be Ben Roethlisberger's final season.
Whoa.
And I think we had to deal with all this retirement back and forth last offseason, and that was tedious. But I think as soon as that issue is brought up and you look at what's happening with Big Ben, I don't think that even last Sunday, those interceptions aren't all on him. It's not about that one game. It's the overall Big Ben experience. I think it may be coming to an end. It's just a guess at this point, but I guess if you want a hot take or a prediction, that would be mine, that I think that this will be his final season.
Well, yeah, I can certainly see how that one would kind of linger back towards the front. And, of course, when it comes to retirement, you don't talk about it unless you're actually thinking about it. So he was probably his own worst enemy at that very moment.
Exactly.
In the offseason. So, yeah, I get it. What is the hottest take you've ever heard? And keep in mind, Skip Bayless tweets are off the table for this.
Wow, the hottest take I've ever heard. Well, I mean, on our show, we constantly throw these things around, and we like to make like major kind of crazy wagers. And I'm not going to say that my hot take, but I can't remember anyone else's on our show, but I remember that I predicted last year's Super Bowl would not occur, that some sort of life event or earth event would change that. And I was incredibly wrong. So I think the hottest take, when they come from me, are typically incorrect. So watch out on the Big Ben. That could be an absolute incorrect answer as well. So
you could find the Fountain of Youth tomorrow, and then it's like, wow, I guess joke's on me. But Falcons probably wish that the Super Bowl didn't happen last year, so maybe that was what it was all about.
Yes.
How much fantasy do you play? I know that it seems obviously like pretty standard question, but I find myself thinking towards the next year now that I'm fully into it right now, and I've added on more and more leagues each year, and I think 3 is my number. I'm in 6 now. I was in 8 last year. 3 is my number. 3 is about the most I can take.
Wow, that's a commitment. I guess because I used to play. I'm old enough where I played my first season of fantasy football like with paper and pens and friends in like 1988. I think my first pick was Roger Craig. So I enjoyed it growing up. And at this point, I played for the first couple years I was at the NFL because it was a good way to kind of stay plugged in with players. And at this point, though, I don't play this season just because I have so much football in my life and I'm so immersed in it that I typically kind of need a break from it when I'm not on the clock. And so if I'm not watching tape and writing and doing all that stuff, I like to go do something completely different. So fantasy football, because I can get competitive, it would just take too much of my time, and I'd be up at like 5 a.m. making transactions and stuff. So I decided to go without it this season, and we'll see. I could be back at some point.
Okay. Well, that moves us to the last part here, a segment I do every Thursday, which is Fan versus Fan Show Pick'em, the 5 best games of the upcoming weekend, picking the winners and losers. I'm 1-4 right now for the season. It's terrible. But we're in no short supply of great games this weekend. We'll take it from the top. The first one I feel everyone's going to be talking about, that early morning game, if you're a West Coaster, is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles and the Carolina Panthers. Now, I'm not sold on the Panthers, but then again, sometimes I let my personal feelings about individual players get in the way of that. But I do think the Eagles are the real deal. Who do you have in this matchup?
I actually think they're both the real deal. Carolina, I think is the kind of team, because they have so much experience, that they know how to handle a full season, and they've been there before, so I'm not counting them out. Love what the Eagles have done. I think they're so balanced on both sides of the ball. And Carson Wentz has taken a leap, and yet they're not asking him to do everything like they did last year. The ground game's working. Their wide receivers, Torrey Smith, Alshon Jeffrey, starting to get more involved. Zach Ertz is having a great season. I'll go Eagles.
I am going to go Eagles as well. There's a lot of people that I know that listen to this show that are Eagles fans. If I don't pick them right now, they're going to be mad at me and blow up my Twitter. So we'll avoid
Fair
that
point.
today. The next one, if you looked at this game on the schedule, you probably would have been like, well, I know how this one's going to go. But now I love it because I tweeted before the season started, keep in mind what people have said about how good this team would be and how bad this team would be. It's the Patriots and the Jets, both at 3-2 right now. Your thoughts on this matchup?
The Jets are well coached right now. I think that it's been one of the stories of the season. And it's a team that, it just goes to show you that in July and August, as we're creating these assumptions and they're being shoved down our throats, that we honestly know next to nothing about how these teams will perform sometimes. And the same thing applies to New England, that people just assumed, 19-0, that was like a constant narrative. New England will win this game. That is my guess. I don't think that's going to be too tough for them. But I think the Jets finish with 6 to 7 wins this season.
Yeah, it has been a nice ride for sure. I feel like this is when all of that probably comes to an end. So I, too, am going to go New England on that one. And then the next game. Now, this one, you want it to be a good game, but in all honesty, it really just is going to depend on which version of what quarterback shows up. And that's when the Green Bay Packers take on the Minnesota Vikings. Keenum can play probably the best backup in the league right now. Not that that means anything. And then, of course, Bradford has had his moments, but he was still dealing with whatever alien injury Monday night. This one, it's a divisional game. You never know. And, of course, the Packers defense is suspect. So your thoughts on this matchup between the North?
I just trust Green Bay more as a team overall. I really like the Vikings defense. They've got weapons on offense, too. I think these are 2 playoff teams. I mean, the Vikings have a feel of a wild card type team to me. When it comes to Green Bay, I just trust them to sort of improve and work out their kinks, at least till January. And I really think that Aaron Jones at running back is having him sort of emerge the way he did last week is good for that offense, too. Aaron Rodgers is playing lights out, Green Bay.
All right, and I'm actually going to go and take the home team Vikings. I don't know why I think something crazy happens in this game, probably like the way that you were feeling with, that the Super Bowl wouldn't happen at all last year. So we'll be different on that one. The next game, Pittsburgh and Kansas City, of course, your thoughts on Big Ben, and the Chiefs are red hot, but this one always seems to be quite the matchup as far as for AFC opponents, not necessarily within one division.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the Steelers' offense bounce back some here, in the sense that they, if you look back at what happened in last week's disaster, Antonio Brown is still week to week putting up about 130 something yards, and I think Lev Bell is running hard. He looks good. I'm not like overly concerned about the Steelers completely nosediving. That said, I look at the Chiefs as one of the best coached teams we've seen in a while. They're just so solid, and I don't think they don't seem to be a letdown type team. And I'll keep picking them until they prove me wrong. So I'll go Kansas City.
All right, and I like Kansas City too. So I'm looking at the primetime games. There's not really a whole lot that stands out there. So I guess the next best thing would be this matchup of teams that's probably going to be a true test for both of them, and that's the LA Rams and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, the more that Blake Bortles isn't on the field, the better off the Jaguars are, and you have a great offense right now for the Rams as far as they are able to drive down and put up points under the new head coaching ability of Sean McVay. Your thoughts on this matchup?
I mean, who would have thought before the season that this would be a game that would be pretty fascinating? It seemed like a total stinker, low rating, scenario before, but I will go Rams. I think one thing that with the Jaguars, they feel like this team that they've had these 2 or 3 epic blowout type games. Their defense is super legit, and yet they lost to the Jets. It's like they kind of go back and forth a little bit. I think this is going to be a very good game. The Rams continue to find themselves in close games, and I think like maybe a fourth quarter late scoring drive, Jared Goff type touchdown gives the Rams a quick edge.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jacksonville at home just because I really like that defense, and I know that when the offense goes out on the field, it's pretty much like, I guess we'll see what happens. It's a giant gamble, but this one should be a good game. I don't know what kind of scoring it's going to be, high or low, but I think when the LA offense takes on that Jacksonville defense, it's going to be something that we're live tweeting ferociously about to see what's going to happen. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and change one pick just to make things interesting. I am going to go ahead and swap from the Patriots to the New York Jets as the crazy upset of the week. So we'll have a tiebreaker there. But Mark,
I like that. That's daring. That's very daring of you. I like it.
Sometimes I like to live on the edge, especially when we're talking football here. It's hard to find any edges left to live on. But last thing, is there any other bold predictions that you have since made for the remainder of the season, or any other hot takes that you have thought, it might be noteworthy to see where we're at come, January, February?
Honestly, like so many of these predictions that I made in the past have just completely been wiped out, as probably will most of my game picks today. So I'm gonna have to say that I'm gonna start over from here. I'm going to try to rebuild this house because I've completely – it's almost ridiculous because we actually track these things in writing on a website attached to our podcast, and it's not the kind of thing I need in writing because it's like, why is this person employed by the National Football League to make any sort of prediction? So you're not getting any more out of me at this point.
One thing that I have found is interesting for this season is that when it comes to what we're looking for on a week-to-week, it's almost like anthem watch. Is this something that is going to continue throughout the remainder of the season, or have we seen the peak of it?
I don't know, because it's hard to predict. The league's own directives suggest that they want to, have everyone, perform a certain way beforehand in terms of the anthem. It's unpredictable at this point. I don't think the issues at the core of it, in terms of what the players are, concerned about, what they're protesting, those issues aren't going away. So it really comes back to how teams individually and really the league globally decide to approach it. But no, I think it's a story of the season and going away, not anytime soon, no.
Okay, he is Marc Sessler, fellow podcaster, NFL, expert, if he calls himself that, with
not really
some great hot takes and bold predictions, but you can hear him on Around the NFL. Mark, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and you're welcome back anytime, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd love to join you again.
All right, you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
I need to not do these pre-recorded interviews at 8 a.m. in the morning. That's the only time he had available for yesterday. And I was thinking, I was like, what was the fifth game that we picked? Because normally we do the Fan versus Fan show pick'em live on Thursday when Thursday Night Football is already happening. And so as I'm listening back to that interview, I cringe. I was like, oh, we did pick that one. And then when I heard the words early Sunday morning, I'm like, wow, I must have really been out of it. I had a cup of coffee as we were talking, but clearly it didn't have enough of an effect on me to make sure that I didn't call out the wrong day and time for that matchup. But speaking of that matchup, I will have a quick game update after this last commercial break. We're going to bring it home on this Thursday edition of The Fan Show right after this. You're listening to The Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's The Fan Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons, like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo. Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again. So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right? Yeah. And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. MyBookie.ag is the industry leader for online betting and gambling. Go visit MyBookie.ag today. They are built on the 3 R's: reputation, reliability, and really fast payouts. And of course, I wouldn't deal with them and do business with them if I didn't trust them. So clearly, you have where you can take my word for it and go visit MyBookie.ag today if you are got a little itch that needs to be scratched when it comes to placing a bet, whether it be football, baseball, or hockey. Basketball's coming up also. But don't forget the good folks at mybookie.ag. They are where you can bet is just as important as who you're betting on. And that's why I'm urging you to make your way to mybookie.ag, because I trust them, as I've said so many times on the show. They have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. You can also check out their online casino if you'd rather just play a few hands of blackjack or roll the dice in craps. Join mybookie.ag. They will match your initial deposit up to 100% bonus when you use the promo code TheFanShow. You play, you win, you get paid, because the reputation is built on that reliability and the really fast payout. Well, if you win, it's your money. You want it now, they'll give it to you now at mybookie.ag. And I promised you all a score update for the Thursday night game. Of course, my guest from tonight, Marc Sessler, picked the Panthers, or we both picked the Eagles, so there is no loser of this game unless Carolina wins, but then we'd both be tied at 0-1. When I went to commercial break, it was 10-3. It is now tied 10-10 after a Carson Wentz to Sir Ertz-a-lot, Zach Ertz, for a 1-yard touchdown. It is 10-10 with the 2-minute warning just happened. Cam Newton was able to scramble into the end zone on a 16-yard play. Super Cam is back. I don't care. I don't like him. Him and Ezekiel Elliott need to be on the same team so I can just dislike that whole team. That's what needs to happen. So that is your Thursday night football update. Don't forget, next week we got all new episodes, all new guests, including Mark Istuk is going to come back. We're going to talk Cowboys, 49ers, and the 49ers will play the Redskins this week. We'll get a look at our future quarterback and Kirk Cousins. That game is in Washington, D.C. We went over the 5 best matchups of the week. And, you know, I'm not knocking prime time, But I don't see how when you make the schedule you think that either of these games are going to be very good. New York and Denver, the Giants, not the Jets. So this isn't even in within the same conference. This is a cross-conference game. And then the Colts and the Titans. I don't see how you could think. I mean, that one is a divisional game, but based on the history there, I don't know. Both of those could be good games, but the Giants are 0-5, and Denver, I think, is 4-1 at this point. They're going to be fresh off of a bye week and ready to go. Chargers at Oakland. If Oakland can win that, they'll be okay. If they don't, though, they're in trouble because they've already lost a couple of games when Derek Carr was their quarterback. If you can win this one without him, I haven't gotten an update on his status as of yet, but I do know that he is projected to come back sooner than initially diagnosed. So if he can come back and they can right the ship, a win without him over LA would be good. And then Detroit, New Orleans, that might end up being a shootout. That one I think is probably going to be a sleeper game of the week. I do like New Orleans in that at home, although it's very tough to pick that one. But yeah, New England, New York, Cleveland, Houston, Chicago, Baltimore. I mean, there's just some sloppy games going on. Tampa Bay, Arizona could be a good one, but it's bad for Tampa Bay if it's good. It's good for Arizona if it's good. Miami, Atlanta. I'm not feeling a whole lot of these games week 6, but hey, this is the point where you have started to separate the good from the not so good. And a lot of these games could be very close. They could come down the wire. They could all be shootouts. I don't think that will be the case, though. Whew. And then, of course, don't forget to follow the Fan Show on Twitter at Fan Show Official. It's where you can find pretty much all and the latest news of the Fan Show. I'm most active on Twitter. Instagram is decent as far as a place that you look at pictures. So that is the Fan Show. And then, of course, probably your next stop for social media engagement would be facebook.com/fanshowofficial. Go and give that a like. That's where you can find all the articles and content. If you're not on Twitter, you're probably on Facebook, and I got you covered on both ends. And then if you can't find something on either of those for whatever reason, visit thefanshow.com, the home base for all things football and nonsense. I am on Snapchat, the Fan Show, but there's not really a whole lot to snap. I don't get out and about, and I'm not one of those people that's just going to Snapchat my life. I'm not about it. You get me for an hour, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I feel like that's enough. Every now and then I'll Periscope. I was Periscoping previews 30 to 60 minutes before the show, but things have gotten a bit busier. I haven't been able to do that, and that's fine. And then, of course, check out the articles. Go and give Team Fan Show some love. They write good stuff. They want you to read it. I want you to read it because these guys are trying to grow and get better as writers. And the only way that they can do that is if you read their stuff and like it, love it, or hate it. They want to know. So give them some feedback. Again, thefanshow.com. I can be heard, or you can hear The Fan Show in many ways, shapes, and forms now. Episodes post onto the YouTube page, which also has all of my live and on location interviews from music festivals to indoor football games and other events. So that is the Fan Show on YouTube. And then, of course, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. I am now on iHeartRadio as well as WBLZ Sports. WBLZ does a replay of each episode the next day at 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific, and iHeartRadio is on demand. You can search The Fan Show under the podcast and find us there. And then, of course, Spreaker.com, where I broadcast to you live from within the Fan Cave studio, and you can listen live on thefanshow.com every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday under the tab that says, what? Listen live. So I think that's going to pretty much do it for this Thursday episode. I'm sorry that I don't have a bit more for you, but it's all right. We'll be back with more next week. So again, Fan Nation, thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, spread the good word of the Fan Show and all things football and nonsense. So best of luck to you and yours. Enjoy all the games this weekend. Hopefully you're not completely out of it in fantasy yet, because it's only week 6, and that would just be tragic. But either way, keep fighting the good fight. Visit teespring.com/thefanshow, and you can help the fight against breast cancer. That's right, 25% of all items sold are donated to Susan G. Komen Foundation. That is teespring.com/thefanshow. Go and order your t-shirt, hoodie, or one of each today. It is going on all October long. Best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and remember, of course, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks.
Do you remember the time that Marc Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.